What began as a fun weekend getaway turned into the most terrifying night of our lives. When Jordan and his 3 friends visited the infamous Lizzy Borden house, they expected a thrill. But what they encountered was far beyond a haunted bedtime story. An unseen force awakened, and it made one thing terrifyingly clear. They were never supposed to be there. My name's Jordan. I've never been one to believe in ghosts. Horror movies? Sure, fun on weekends, paranormal stories. Entertaining, nothing more. But that was before Fall River, before the Lizzy Borden house. It was a cold Friday morning in late October when I left Boston with my 3 closest friends. Tyler, Chris and Mia. We were all in our mid-20s, thrill seekers with a shared love for dark history and abandoned places. Tyler had found the listing online. Spend the night in the infamous Lizzy Borden house, if you dare. He dared. We all did. We drove south along I-95, the sun creeping above the horizon, painting the trees in deep golds and oranges. Fall River greeted us with a crisp breeze and the scent of damp leaves. It was quiet. Too quiet for a city of its size, almost like the streets were watching. When we pulled up to 232nd Street, the house stood just as we'd seen in photos. Victorian, weathered, almost oddly well preserved. The kind of place that looks completely normal in daylight, but you just know it's hiding something. The caretaker, a soft-spoken woman named Karen, greeted us at the door. She was probably in her 60s, thin, pale, and with eyes that never seemed to focus quite right. She welcomed us warmly, handed us the keys and gave us a brief tour. "This house is a living museum," she said. "Everything has been preserved to reflect that August day in 1892. You're sleeping in history." She paused near the sitting room, where Andrew Borden had been found murdered. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Some say they still walk these halls. If they don't like you here, you'll know." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then she left. Just like that, the house was ours for the night. We spent the afternoon exploring. Every room was heavy with silence, like even the walls were trying not to breathe. Chris, always the skeptic, joked that he was waiting for Lizzy to offer him tea. Mia kept looking over her shoulder, already uncomfortable. Tyler was obsessed, filming everything with his phone, documenting each creak and shadow. The rooms were decorated in perfect 1890s style. Lace curtains, oil lamps, aged wallpaper, and furniture that looked too delicate to touch. I remember standing in Lizzy's bedroom, wondering how someone could have lived through so much darkness and just kept going. We unpacked in the late afternoon. Tyler and I took the room where the stepmother, Abby Borden, was found dead. Mia and Chris shared the master bedroom. We all agreed, if anything happened, we'd stick together, strength in numbers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the mood shifted. Shadows grew longer. The house cooled even though the heater was on. Outside, the wind began to whistle through the trees. Inside, the silence thickened into something almost physical. Chris cooked a quick dinner in the small kitchen, but no one really ate. We lit candles for atmosphere, Tyler's idea, and sat around the parlor sharing ghost stories. We laughed more than we screamed, but deep down something felt off. At exactly 10:14 p.m, the lights flickered, once, then again, and stayed off. "Breaker must have tripped," Tyler said, rising casually. But when he went to check, he found nothing wrong. "All switches are fine," he said, a little less confident. So we laughed it off. Again, we were here for the experience after all. At midnight, we decided to start a recording session, EVPs, just like those paranormal shows. Tyler placed his phone on the coffee table, hit record, and we began asking questions. "Is there anyone here with us?" Chris asked. No response. "Do you want us to leave?" I added. Silence. After 20 minutes, we stopped the recording and played it back. The first few seconds were normal, our voices, our laughter. But at minute 7, during a quiet pause, a faint whisper emerged. "Leave." We stared at each other. Mia's face went pale. "Was that one of you?" Tyler shook his head. No one said anything. It wasn't enough to scare us, not yet, but it was enough to put everyone on edge. Around 2 a.m, we decided to try sleeping, though none of us expected much rest. I lay in the creaky old bed staring at the ceiling, listening. The house made noises, Soft groans, faint taps like it was breathing. And then footsteps. Light, deliberate, moving in the hallway just outside our door. I sat up instantly. Tyler was already awake, frozen, eyes wide. "You hear that?" I whispered. He nodded. The footsteps stopped. We waited. Silence. Eventually I lay back down. Maybe it was the floor settling, maybe a draft. I told myself anything to sleep, but deep down I felt it. Something was watching, and we were just getting started. I must have dozed off for a while, but it wasn't restful. My dreams were filled with flickering shadows, whispers, and the overwhelming sensation of being stared at. When I woke up again, the room was colder than it had any right to be, despite the thermostat still reading 70 degrees. Tyler was awake too, sitting up with his back against the headboard. He looked uneasy, his eyes darting toward the closed door. "You didn't sleep either?" I asked. He just shook his head. "Something walked past the door. Twice, like heavy steps. It wasn't you or Chris, I know that." I didn't respond. A part of me wanted to believe he was wrong, that it was just his imagination getting the best of him. But I'd heard it too, those same footsteps hours earlier. We both got up and walked slowly to the hallway. The light from our phones cut through the thick shadows. Everything was still. The floorboards creaked beneath us, echoing through the silence like a warning. We peeked into the other bedroom. Chris and Mia were both asleep, or at least they looked like it. Mia's arm hung off the bed, swaying slightly like she just turned over. But Chris was lying stiff, face up, eyes wide open. "Chris?" I whispered. No response. "Chris, man, you okay?" He blinked suddenly and sat up too fast, gasping like he'd just surfaced from underwater. "You guys," he began, his voice hoarse. I had the worst dream. Someone was standing over me, just staring. I couldn't move. He was trembling. I looked at Mia. She was still asleep, but even her breathing seemed off, too shallow, too slow. Chris wiped sweat from his face. I know it was a dream, but it felt real. Like real. Tyler's face paled. Jordan and I heard someone outside our door. We all stood in silence for a moment, trying to rationalize what was happening. Maybe we were feeding into each other's fear. Maybe we were just tired, but the tension in the air said otherwise. We moved back to the sitting room. The idea of going back to bed was off the table. Chris suggested playing back the rest of the EVP recording again. Maybe we missed something. Tyler hesitated but agreed. He hit play. We listened to our voices echo from earlier, our questions, our laughter, the whisper that said, "Leave." But then, around minute 12, something new came through. A soft thump, then another, like footsteps, and then a voice. This time it was clearer, raspier, and unmistakably angry. "Why are you here?" Mia covered her mouth, her eyes wide. That wasn't any of us, that wasn't a whisper. Chris suddenly stood and walked to the front door. "Let's just leave," he muttered. "This isn't fun anymore." He pulled at the handle, it didn't budge. "It's locked," he said, "from the inside." Tyler walked over. "It shouldn't be. There's no deadbolt on this side." They tried again. Nothing. "Maybe it's stuck," I offered, trying to stay rational. Chris stepped back and yanked hard, still nothing. "Okay," he said slowly. "Weird." Mia turned to me. "Jordan, it's like the house doesn't want us to leave." I wanted to laugh, say she was being ridiculous, but I couldn't. We tried the back door. Same thing. Locked, no response from the handle. We even checked the windows, but they wouldn't lift. Some were nailed shut, others just wouldn't budge. At this point, something shifted in the group. The fun, adventurous mood was gone. There was a growing sense of dread settling in our bones. "I need air," Mia said. We opened a window in the sitting room just slightly, enough to let in the cold breeze. She sat near it, hugging her knees. Then something strange happened. Her expression changed. Her eyes unfocused, her breathing slowed. "Mia," I said. No answer. She slowly stood up and walked toward the staircase, almost like she was in a trance. "Mia!" Tyler rushed forward and grabbed her arm. She jolted awake, blinked. "What? Why am I over here?" "You tell us," Chris said. "You were acting like someone was pulling you." Mia looked genuinely shaken. "I don't remember walking. I just felt something calling me, like I needed to go upstairs. We all stared up the staircase. The second floor felt darker than before, heavier. We decided not to split up again. No more alone time, no more exploring. We gathered in the sitting room, turned on every flashlight we had, and sat in a tight circle on the floor. Tyler checked his phone. 3:12 a.m. The wind outside had picked up. Branches tapped against the window like fingers. Suddenly, a loud bang came from upstairs. We froze. Then another, like something heavy had been thrown across the room. Chris stood up. "No, not dealing with this. Something's up there." Tyler, always the brave one, grabbed his flashlight. "We have to check. What if someone's in here with us?" "I'd rather not know," I muttered, but we followed anyway. Strength in numbers, we reminded ourselves. We moved up the stairs slowly. Every step creaked. The hallway on the second floor was even colder than before. We turned toward Lizzie's old room. The door was slightly open. Tyler pushed it gently. Nothing. The room looked the same, everything in place. Then Mia gasped. The dresser mirror was fogged up, with words scratched into the condensation. They read, "You shouldn't have come." My blood ran cold. The room was too dry to fog up naturally. No one had been in here since earlier. We backed out. No one said a word. That's when we realized something terrifying. The house wasn't just haunted. It was awake, and it had noticed us. Back in the sitting room, no one spoke for a while. The fogged-up mirror still haunted our thoughts. The phrase, "You shouldn't have come," played on a loop in my head like a broken record. Chris was pacing, his face pale. "This isn't residual energy, Jordan. This isn't just a haunting. Something here is intelligent." Tyler sat down, hands on his head. "We came here to experience something spooky, maybe catch a few whispers, not be told to leave by something we can't see." I looked over at Mia. She hadn't spoken in several minutes. Her eyes were fixed on the hallway leading to the front door. When I followed her gaze, I nearly jumped. A shadow moved, not like a trick of the light. It moved with intent. It crossed the hallway slowly, almost cautiously, like it knew we were watching. No footsteps, no sound. "Mia, did you see that?" I asked quietly. She nodded. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Chris turned off the EVP recorder, which we had left running. "I want to play back that last 20 minutes, he said. "Something's not right." He hit rewind and play. The static hummed. Our voices whispered. And then, layered beneath everything, a deep growl, animalistic, guttural, followed by what sounded like heavy breathing right next to the mic. Tyler hit stop. "Nope, I'm done. We need out of this house." "We tried," I reminded him. "The doors won't open." "Break a window then," he snapped. "I don't care anymore. This place is wrong." Chris grabbed the heaviest thing nearby, a large decorative lamp, and hurled it at the front window. Crash. The glass didn't shatter. It shook. It cracked in a spiderweb pattern, but it held. Mia began crying softly. "It doesn't want us to leave." The air turned colder. Chris looked at us with fear in his eyes. "We're not dealing with just ghosts. This is something else." The lights suddenly flickered. Once, twice. Then the room went completely dark. We screamed, fumbling with our flashlights. Mine flickered weakly, casting pale light across the room. But what I saw made my heart nearly stop. A woman, standing in the corner, pale, dressed in white, eyes hollow, face blank. She wasn't there a second before. She didn't move. She didn't blink. We were frozen in place, then she opened her mouth and let out a sound that wasn't human. It was a screech layered with pain, grief, and fury. It vibrated through the walls. Our flashlights went out. Total blackness. Mia screamed. I reached for her, but she was gone. Her voice echoed down the hallway, panicked and distant. "Help me! Jordan! Tyler, where are you?" We scattered. I ran toward the hallway, yelling her name, but the halls twisted strangely, like the layout had changed. Turned a corner I didn't recognize and found myself at a dead end. A wall that shouldn't exist. Behind me, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. I turned. Nothing. Then the whisper. "Stay." A hand touched my shoulder. I spun around and hit nothing but air. After what felt like hours, I found Tyler. He was in the upstairs hallway, crouched by a bedroom door, breathing heavily. "Did you find Mia?" I asked. He shook his head. She disappeared. 1 second she was next to me, then gone. We heard a door creak nearby, not from our touch, but from inside. Then Chris appeared behind us, wild-eyed, holding a small crucifix he must have found upstairs. "It said my name," he whispered. "Jordan, it said my name like it knew me, like it's been waiting." Before I could answer, Mia's scream echoed through the house again, but this time it came from above. The attic. We bolted up the narrow staircase. The attic was pitch black. Dust choked the air. We called Mia's name again and again. Suddenly our flashlights turned on at the same time, without us touching them. There she was, Mia, standing perfectly still in the middle of the attic. "Mia!" I yelled. She turned slowly. Her eyes, they were rolled back. Her mouth opened and she spoke, but it wasn't her voice. "You were warned." Then she collapsed. We ran to her. She was breathing, unconscious but alive. Chris lifted her up as gently as he could. Then we heard it. A loud, slow knock on the attic door behind us. 1, 2, 3. We turned, and the door slammed shut. We spent hours in that attic, terrified, trapped. Our phones had died. The air felt thinner by the minute. We tried to stay awake, afraid that if we slept we wouldn't wake up. Finally, just before dawn, the door creaked open on its own. We didn't question it, we just ran. Down the stairs, through the sitting room. The front door was wide open now, the morning light pouring in like salvation. We carried Mia outside. Her eyes fluttered open. She whispered, "Did you hear them?" "Hear who?" I asked. Her voice cracked. "The ones who live here, they told me. We don't belong." We thought escaping the attic was the end of the nightmare. The front door had opened. Mia had woken up and daylight poured in like a miracle. But as we stumbled back into the living room to grab our gear, the air shifted, as if the house refused to let go of us. Chris suddenly stopped. His eyes widened. He clutched his chest and dropped to his knees. "Chris?" I rushed to him. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer. His mouth was slightly open, but no sound came out. His limbs went stiff. He wasn't breathing. "Call someone," I shouted, but Tyler had already pulled out his phone, only to realize it was dead again. All of ours were, even though they'd powered up briefly when we reached the front door. Mia leaned over Chris, her hands trembling as she tried to shake him. "He's paralyzed," she said. "His eyes are moving, but he can't talk. He's trapped in his own body." Then, we heard it. A low whisper. It didn't come from the room or even the walls. It came from within the air itself. "One of you must stay." We turned, terrified. The shadow from the hallway, the same one from earlier, stood at the threshold. But this time it had a shape, a figure, tall, thin. Its face was featureless, but the dread it radiated was suffocating. Tyler backed up slowly, pulling Mia with him. "We need to get out now." "I'm not leaving Chris," I snapped. But then Chris's body began to rise, not by his own strength. He floated, into the air, stiff like a plank. His arms out to the sides, head tilted unnaturally back. And then, his voice came, only it wasn't his voice. "The house remembers. The house decides. The living must not disturb the dead." The voice echoed from everywhere. Walls, floor, air. It shook us to the bone. Chris's body dropped with a thud, lifeless. Mia screamed. Tyler pulled her toward the door again. I knelt next to Chris. Thankfully, he was breathing again. Shallow. Eyes closed. I looked up at the figure. It was closer now, too close. I grabbed Chris's arm. "Help me carry him." Tyler ran back, and together we dragged Chris across the threshold. The second our feet hit the porch, the figure dissolved into mist. We didn't stop. We ran. We got Chris into the car. His eyes fluttered open as we pulled away from the house. "Are we out?" he mumbled weakly. "You're okay," I said. "Just stay with us." But then, the voice returned. Not from the house, from behind us, inside the car. Whispered, slow but terrifyingly clear. "Never come back, you were warned." The back window fogged instantly, though it was warm outside, and scrawled in the condensation, without a hand to write it, was a single word. "Go." Tyler floored the gas. We didn't look back. We drove in silence for nearly an hour. Chris finally spoke again, voice hoarse. I I felt it. Something inside me. It wasn't letting go. Mia was shaking. It said one of us had to stay. I glanced back at the road behind us, still half expecting to see the house following us in the distance somehow, but there was nothing. Just trees and the rising sun. We didn't talk much after that. The fear stayed with us, clinging like smoke in our lungs. Something invisible, yet heavy. We knew the truth now. The Lizzy Borden house isn't just haunted. It's watching, choosing, waiting. And we'd disturbed something that didn't want to be found. We made it back home just after noon. No one said much during the drive. The usual excitement after a trip was absent, replaced by something cold, invisible, and unwelcome. It felt like we'd left something behind, and yet also brought something back with us. Chris slept for most of the drive, waking only to drink water. Mia sat silently, staring out the window with red eyes. Tyler kept checking the rearview mirror every few minutes like he expected to see something chasing us. I kept thinking, we survived. But what did we survive exactly? And why us? We dropped everyone off one by one. Chris insisted he was okay. Though pale and slow, he could stand on his own. He promised to go see a doctor. Mia hugged us quickly, her hands still shaking. Tyler gave a simple nod before disappearing into his house. When I got to my place, I sat in the car for a long time before going inside. The air felt different, stale, heavy. I turned on every light, every lamp. I opened windows even though it was cold outside. Still, it didn't feel right, like something was hiding in the corners, watching. That night I couldn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m, I woke up gasping for breath. Not from a nightmare, but because I felt like someone was sitting on my chest. My room was dark, but the hallway light, left on, had gone out, and then I heard it again. "You were warned." It whispered right by my ear, though no one was there. I jumped up, turned on every light again. Nothing, just silence. The next morning, Tyler texted. Mia heard the whisper too, at the exact same time. 3:17. Then Chris called. He had dreamt he was floating again, that his mouth wouldn't open, that the shadow stood at the foot of his bed, watching him sleep. We don't talk about Lizzy Borden house anymore. Not in full, not with strangers, not even with each other. We've tried to move on. But each of us has scars, not on our bodies, but deep inside. Sometimes I still hear tapping on my walls at night. Sometimes I wake up with the sheets pulled down to my feet. Sometimes I dream of the attic again. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear that voice whispering, not in anger anymore, but in warning. Never disturb the dead, or you might not leave alone. We didn't go to that house looking for trouble, but we found it, and now part of it is with us forever.